All right, so something a little different than you're probably used to seeing if you watch my channel. This is this is definitely a departure. So I've actually owned a few of these in the past, and this car here isn't mine. This is my girlfriend's car. She bought it yesterday. It's a car I had found on Marketplace. There was a few cars she was looking for, and we're going to talk a little bit about what this is and why I think it's significant. This is a 1972 MG Midget. Now, before there was a Miata, before anybody really knew who Mazda was, there was the MG. And this car dates back to, post-war times. Vets came back. They liked small sports cars. They drove in Europe, yada, yada. Fast forward to around 1960, the Austin Healey Bug-Eye Sprite debuts. And a little while later, that was like around 998 cc's. It evolved to a 1098 in this car. This thing, I think these started around 63, then it evolved to the 1275. So that's the car we're talking about today. This is a 72, which makes it a round rear wheel arch car. Has a round rear wheel well, rather than a flat canted off one. They did that 72, 73, 74, and it has the 1275 cc inline four, just a push rod, 4-cylinder engine. So it's rated at 54.5 horsepower, and it's kind of funny because that's the official rating, 54.5. For fuck's sake, it was so low that they had to claim the half a point. I've never heard of another car that was rated and rounded to any decimal place of power other than an MG Midget. Although it only had to push 1,520 pounds, give or take, dry weight. That's without my ass in it. I would increase that by about 225 pounds. Not a particularly fast car, obviously. 0 to 60 in the range of 15 seconds. Through the standard 4-speed manual transmission, no automatic available as God intended. This specific example is actually outfitted with a Datsun 5-speed swap, which came from the 79 to 82 Datsun 210, which gives you a 0.8 to 1 overdrive to use this thing just a little more leisurely at 60 to 65 mile an hour speeds and keep the RPMs down to maybe around 3,000 at 65 rather than, 4,000 or more. They were a pretty buzzy car. Top speed on these around 80, 85. You might squeeze 90 out of it, although it'd be absolutely terrifying. I've never done more than 60 in one of these. And yes, I know, you probably don't think so, but I can fit in the car. Anyhow, so this specific example is special because of a few reasons. Again, the round wheel arch, the 1275, but it has true knockoff wire wheels, which are kind of a cool thing that you'll see on some of these cars. And it is British Racing Green over saddle tan interior, which is an absolutely gorgeous combination. Just going to walk around this thing up close really briefly. Kind of highlight the beautiful front end with the large grille, polished aluminum. You've got steel bumpers with beautiful chrome, giant headlights with beautiful chrome surroundings on this thing. There's a lot of styling elements that are pretty upscale, at least to what we're used to today, and what would be an affordable sports car, And it's got a lot more flair than a Miata, which many of you know I'm not a huge fan. I don't think Miata is always the answer. As a matter of fact, this is way cooler, and it's less money. So coming around here, I think it's just the British Racing Green really speaking to me. Just gorgeous. And I've often in my head compared the look of these and the general shape to, some of the vintage Ferraris of the late 50s. And some people say I'm silly to make that comparison, but even looking at those rear taillights, I think you can see just a little bit of Ferris Bueller's 250 GT California, or I guess rather Cameron's father's car. Just a nice look. Simple, classic, and pretty elegant too. And these are sure to turn heads everywhere you go, if anything, just for the size. I mean, the name alone lets you know. It's called the MG Midget, which is another reminder of this car being produced in a time gone, because I don't think today any PR department would allow you to name a car a midget or a dwarf or anything of that nature out of fear of offending somebody. But this is from a different time. We were different people, and I think classic cars like this, part of the allure is remembering, I guess, a different time. Safety wasn't a concern. It was just style. It was just style and design. It's phenomenal. So as you can see, you know, this is a car from an era gone. This is carbureted, design over any sort of real safety function. If it's from an era when people carelessly smoked cigarettes with no regard. As a matter of fact, really didn't even deem it unsafe. This thing is definitely more dangerous than cigarettes, and I'd probably dare to say it's more dangerous than a motorcycle. And there's something about that that just makes it cool, right? So you think 54 horsepower, tiny car, how can that be cool? Well, the attitude of this car is so carefree. It's nothing like anything built today. And I think it probably is the smallest mainstream mass-produced sports car. And I'm aware of cars post-war like the Crosley and some other things that might have been just a touch smaller. But at 11 foot 4 inches, I'd say this is probably the smallest mass-produced car, other than the Isetta. We're not going to include that either. BMW Isetta off the list. Sports car that was ever built. And they were actually more popular in the United States than in the UK. They sold more here. It's just an example of how far we've come, but also, I guess, what we've lost. We've lost the freedom of a car like this, the design first kind of ideology because of safety, which we had to do. But it's just interesting. It's interesting to contrast this car against things today and say, wow. And you can really feel the fact that this is something very different. In terms of values, these cars are actually one of the most affordable British sports cars or sports cars of any kind that you can buy. These are cheaper than, I would say, most clean NA Miatas dollar for dollar. Probably not pound for pound because this is a good bit lighter. A driver quality example of these can be found in the $6,000 range. Nicer ones like this, probably more towards the $8,000 to $9,500 range and beyond for really top tier cars. 1275 round wheel arch cars being the ones that dominate the most money, demand the most money even, and rubber bumper cars being the ones that really kind of are found at more of a bargain price because they're just a lot less desirable, heavier, and they aren't from an era that I guess we look on so fondly like the late 70s because of all the regulations with emissions and safety and all the things that really started to cripple and confuse the car industry. This was really before all of that started to happen. And I guess that's why I love it. Thanks for watching.